Hari Hari, Bhagavad Gita, Teacher Certification, Module 2.2. Vashamrita Gita, Shloka number 5. We are still exploring Kama from the Purusharthas, Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. This is verse 3, text 43 from the Bhagavad Gita. Evam buddhe param buddhva samstabhyatmanamatmana Jahi Shatrum Mahabaho Kama Rupam Dharasadam. Thus knowing oneself to be transcendental to the material senses, mind, and intelligence, O mighty armed Arjuna, one should steady the mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence, Krishna consciousness, and thus, by spiritual strength, conquer this insatiable enemy known as lust. So we're going to dissect this issue of karma. By pulling it apart, we'll be able to understand it, know what its constituent parts are, where it resides, and what Krishna's recommendation is for dealing with it. Let's quick recap, quick refresher on where we have come so far. The Jivatma, the spirit living entity, you and I, we are Sat, eternal, Chit, aware, conscious, sentient, and Ananda, blissful. These three attributes are part and parcel of who we are as Jivatma, as spirit beings. The Jivatma has Icha. Icha means will, desire. It is the desire to experience and to manifest these three attributes. We want to exist, we want to experience eternality, we want to exercise our awareness, we want to experience bliss. This want is called Icha, Icha of the Jivatma. When, however, we identify with our material body, the Jivatma is not our material body. The Jivatma is Kshetra Gya. Jivatma is knower of the field. The body is Kshetra. The body is the field. When we identify, or rather misidentify with the field as ourself, that is Ahankar. That is when we believe that our material reality, our material body, our material being is our essential identity. That is Ahankar. It's a misidentification. It's often called a false ego, a false identification. But the problem is the Icha, our Icha as spiritual beings, is reflected through this Ahankar, this contaminated idea, this misidentification, and this Icha manifests in the world as Kama. So what is Kama? Kama is also desire. It's born. It's actually our Icha reflected through or shining through, if you will, Ahankar. So it is of the essential same quality, the desire to experience our being. But if we identify with the body, then Kama is going to want to experience happiness on the level of the body. Let's come to our first point of the day. Anandamaya. We are Sat, Chit, and Ananda. This Anandamaya, this desire to experience, to manifest and present our full spiritual being and nature as Ananda, as blissful, that remains, that never goes away. Even though we have this misconception, this ahankar, this misidentification, that Anandamaya, our essential self, never goes away. It is simply shining through a perverted, clouded misidentification called ahankar, and it then manifests as kama, that desire. We still desire happiness. We will always desire happiness. As Jivatma, as pure, enlightened beings, Atma Jnana means self-realized. As self-realized beings, we will want to experience Ananda. As non-enlightened beings, we still want to experience happiness of a different quality, but happiness nevertheless. Let's explore kama. Gyanendriya, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. These are the 5 Gyanendriya. We talked about before how an understanding of Sankhya philosophy is essential to understanding what Krishna is getting at in the Bhagavad Gita, because he uses a lot of Sankhya. He assumes and takes for granted that the reader has some basic understanding of Sankhya. Jnana means knowledge. Indriya means senses. So Gyanendriya means knowledge acquiring senses. These are the senses we use to gather information about the world around us. Eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. Karmendriya, arms, legs, stomach, organs of evacuation and reproduction. These 5 are called working senses. Karma means to work, indriya means senses. So these 5 are the working senses. So we have 5 knowledge acquiring senses and 5 working senses. Then we have the mind and intelligence. There's a total of 12 here. 5 knowledge acquiring senses, the 5 working senses, and then the mind and the intelligence. These 12 spaces are described as where kama resides. Right? Kama is this desire to experience happiness. We are Anandamaya, we want to experience happiness. This desire to experience happiness, perverted through ahankar, rests or resides, if you will, in these 12 spaces. These 12 spaces, the 12 senses are trying to, and the mind and intelligence, are trying to experience happiness. They're trying to connect with the sense objects. The ears, the eyes, the tongue, all of these senses, the mind and intelligence, they're trying to seek out satisfaction, gratification, or at the very least, they're trying to eliminate distress. They're trying to eliminate or mitigate unhappiness, unpleasantness. This is where kama resides. So when there is a false identification with these 12, the natural inclination of the jivatma to experience happiness becomes focused on satisfying these 12 senses, mind and intelligence. Now, understanding where kama is, or where kama resides, if you will, we can then go back to this particular verse and see what Krishna says about mastering kama. Right? Krishna says, thus knowing oneself, to be transcendental to the material senses, mind, and intelligence, O mighty armed Arjuna, one should steady the mind by adherence to spiritual intelligence, and thus, by spiritual strength, conquer this insatiable enemy known as lust. So Krishna is pointing out here, by transcending the material mind and senses, then we can conquer, we can master this insatiable enemy. The reason why this attribute of kama is described as insatiable is because it is part and parcel of these senses. The sense is designed, the eyes, the ears, the nose, everything, all of these senses are designed to seek out pleasure. They're designed, if they're not doing that, then you're actually ill, right? If the eyes are not doing their job, you're ill. If the ears are not seeking out what's pleasurable, you are ill. If the nose, you're ill. There's a sickness, you're diseased. Healthy body, a healthy mind will naturally attempt to connect with sense objects to experience satisfaction or to mitigate distress. That is what these healthy mind and body will do. That's why it's insatiable. The body is supposed to seek out the sense objects. There's another verse early on in the second chapter. Krishna says, Apuryamanam achala pratishtam samudra apa pravishanti yadvat tadvat kamayam. There's that word, kamayam, pravishanti sarve sashantim apnoti nakama kami. A wonderful verse and a wonderful visual. Krishna says a person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires, insatiable, it's incessant. The incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled, but is always still, can alone achieve peace, and not the individual who tries to satisfy all those desires. So it's not about stopping the flow of desires. It's insatiable. The desires are supposed to be there. If your body and mind are healthy, they're going to have kama. They're going to be desiring interaction with the sense objects. It is about being samudramapa. It is about being like the ocean. All the desires can come, but because, and as Krishna says in this verse, that's the key. We have to have a transcendental realization of our identity. When we have transcendentally knowing oneself to be transcendental, one should steady the mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence. Then you can conquer the insatiable enemy known as lust, the incessant desires that enter through the Gyanendriya, through the Karmendriya, through the mind and intelligence. In this verse, the first line of this verse, Krishna says, Evam buddhe param buddhva. This is a very, very important word, buddhva. Buddhva means intelligence. But it also has a very special meaning. It doesn't mean intelligence in terms of just one, understanding astrophysics. Buddhva denotes intelligence of a spiritual quality. Buddhi means understanding the difference between kshetra and kshetragya. That's what Buddha means, buddhi. That's the kind of intelligence Krishna is describing. Spiritual intelligence, atmagyan. So when Krishna says in this verse, when he uses the word buddha, he's not talking about mere intellectual knowing. He's talking about a spiritual understanding, a spiritual realization of the difference between kshetra, which are these 13 senses, mind, and intelligence. 12. The difference between kshetra and jivatma. This is buddhi, spiritual enlightened intelligence. Now, there is also jnana yoga. Krishna spends the entire fourth chapter of the Bhagavad Gita talking about jnana yoga. Jnana yoga is all through the Vedanta, the Vedas as well. Krishna here does not mention or recommend, if you will, jnana yoga at this point in time. Instead, he recommends and he talks about buddhi yoga. He references buddhi yoga. Now, the interesting thing about buddhi yoga is that buddhi yoga doesn't exist outside of the Gita. Krishna created, invented, or is a founder, if you will, of buddhi yoga. The first time buddhi yoga is expressed as an idea, as a concept, as a practice, is in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna is the founder of buddhi yoga. Why does Krishna create, if you will, a yoga that is similar or is the same as a yoga he's already talked about? What's the difference? What makes buddhi yoga different from jnana yoga? And why does Krishna here recommend buddhi yoga instead of jnana yoga? Oftentimes, too oftentimes, and this is one of the things that if you get nothing else from this course of the Bhagavad Gita, at least get this. Too often, Jnana yoga and buddhi yoga are defined or described as the same thing because they do both mean intelligence. Jnana means transcendental knowledge. Buddhi means transcendental knowledge. Jnana is a little more broad. It can mean any kind of knowledge, but in the Bhagavad Gita, we all know in the context of the Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna says jnana, he's not talking about ABCs and your timetables. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, when he says jnana, he's talking about the realization of the difference between kshetra and kshetragya. So if both buddhi and jnana are essentially the same thing, transcendental knowledge, the process of transcendental knowledge, why does Krishna create an entirely new yoga when jnana yoga should suffice? Pardon me. Obviously, these two are distinctly different by Krishna's definition in the Bhagavad Gita. Remember, buddhi yoga does not exist. Krishna created buddhi yoga in the Bhagavad Gita. It's the first time it's ever brought up and talked about. Both of these yogas, excuse me, have two completely different processes. Buddhi yoga, the process of buddhi yoga is love. The process of jnana yoga is meditation. Two completely different processes. The process for each of these yogas are different. The outcomes are also different. The outcome of jnana yoga is self-realization, atma-gyan, and realization of one's oneness with the Supreme. Self-realization, meaning I am Jivatma, and realization that I am qualitatively the same as the supreme, either consciousness or being. And this results in the mastery of kama. Where the rivers flow, the desires come, but because the jnana yogi is situated in transcendence, is situated in equilibrium, is not misidentifying itself with the body, then the jnana yogi can remain aware of, but aloof from the control of the desires that enter incessantly. But that's the outcome. Process, meditation, outcome, Atmagyan, self-realization, and understanding, realization of one's oneness with the Supreme. Buddhi Yoga is different. Buddhi Yoga, the process is love, bhakti. The outcome is also different. There is Atmagyan, there is self-realization, thus mastery of kama. So in that way, the outcomes are the same. Atmagyan, self-realization, mastery of kama. There's also realization of the Supreme in Buddhi Yoga. But not only is there realization of one's similarity, one's qualitative oneness with the Supreme, there is also realization of one's possibility of relationship with the Supreme. That's the key difference. In Buddhi Yoga, there's a realization of relationship. The reason why Krishna recommends Buddhi Yoga here, even though both Buddhi Yoga and Jnana Yoga lead to the mastery of kama, the purifying of the ahankar, the rising above identification or clearing up that identification with the material body, both are achieved through these yogas. But the only difference is that Buddhi Yoga comes a realization that one can have a unique relationship of love with the Supreme. And this is important when we get to the final instruction of the Bhagavad Gita. That's why Krishna recommends Buddhi. Krishna recommended Buddhi all the way in the second chapter. The first time Krishna brings up the word Buddhi Yoga is in the second chapter. He brings up Buddhi here in the third chapter. This is the last verse of the third chapter. In the beginning of the fourth chapter, Krishna says, I instructed this yoga to the sun god. A fantastical claim, by the way, be that as it may. Krishna says, I instructed this yoga to the sun god. This yoga is Buddhi Yoga. That's the yoga Krishna explained. Krishna says, I explained this Buddhi Yoga to the sun god. But in the course of time, this understanding was lost. Buddhi Yoga was lost. And Krishna says, I'm telling it to you now because you are my devotee and my friend. Krishna uses two terms, bhakta and sakha. Bhakta means devotee, a relationship of love, and sakha means intimate friend. Because you're my devotee, because you're my friend, I am telling you once again about this Buddhi Yoga. So the conclusion, while both Jnana Yoga and Buddhi Yoga provide freedom from kama or moksha, here Krishna is recommending Buddhi Yoga. Because throughout the entire Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has been recommending Buddhi Yoga. And we'll see this again when we start exploring moksha later on. Hari Hari.